Hi everyone, welcome to my session. And today we are going to talk about how to empower your Bedrock agent with GraphRAG. And I wanted to start off with a quote by Andrew Ng, who is a founder of Deep Learning AI, a pretty known person. And he said that knowledge graphs can improve the context you pass to the large language model and the performance of your RAG applications. Why did he say so? What is a knowledge graph? How can we make use of it? How can we extract additional insights out of them? Let's talk about this today, not tomorrow. So the agenda is quite simple. First, we will review a little bit of terminology to understand what is a graph, what is a RAG, what is a combination of graphs and RAG. Then we will see more practical example how to create a GraphRAG powered Bedrock agent, which is quite simple, I would say straightforward. We will see if we want to go next and we want to have more customization, how can we do it? And my examples would be pretty simple and based on tourism because it's, I think, industry that everyone can understand because pretty everyone done some trips. But we will see what are possible use cases beyond that. And there will be some disclaimers and important things to know when you are trying to build something with graphs. And I think we can do a Q&A in the end. Nice to meet you again. My name is Darya, and I work as a senior data scientist at a company called SLB. I'm an AWS community builder since 2022. And if you're interested in AWS community, different programs, I'm a good person to approach. We'll be happy to answer your questions. But in any case, I will be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. Send me a request. And let's move forward. Yeah, just a moment. So let's do a little bit diving into terminology. What is the difference between GraphRAG and RAG? I think many of you are already aware of RAG. Yeah, how many of you heard, touched? Yeah, I think it's pretty much everywhere. But just a quick recap. In traditional RAG, we have some raw documents. We are splitting them into pieces or chunks. We are converting, basically embed these pieces, convert them into vectors and store them into a vector database. And when we have a question, basically a query, or our user have a question, a query, this text is being encoded. Yeah, it's being embedded. And using this embeddings, we do like a semantic similarity, basically vector similarity retrieval from our vector database. We retrieve some number of pieces of our documents, and we then hand it over to our large language model to generate a response. Yeah, we have retrieved, let's suppose, top N 5 documents. Yeah, but it is challenging to decide what is a suitable number of document is. Maybe our relevant and most interesting information would be in a document or chunk number 6. We don't know. And also large language models just not great with certain types of questions. For example, if we want to combine and understand different relationships, and if that combination is going beyond semantic similarity. So let's consider this touristic example. I want to know which cities has direct flights from Chicago with popular seafood restaurants. So basically there are two questions. The first one, what cities have direct flights from Chicago? And the second one, what are popular seafood restaurants in those cities? if we're doing some kind of RAG, we have chunks from the documents, but we have no certainty that all these relevant chunks were extracted and somehow combined to formulate an answer, like a coherent answer. But if we could have some sort of structure that gives us like a high-level overview of what's going on, like model this relationship in a somehow, that would be beneficial to have the response on our question. So we kind of touched graphs. So what is a graph? A graph is constructed from explicitly linked entities and their relationships. And it's stored in a form of graph database. And a basic element of it, it's a triplet. Basically two nodes connected with an edge between them. And I like to model it like a sentence. Yeah, I can say that I am now in Malmö. I'm just located now in Malmö, yeah? So I am a subject located in as a predicate, like my relationship, and Malmö is an object. But yeah, use your imagination. You can think about many, many similar examples. So, and if we are trying to use different subjects, so objects can become subjects, and subjects can become objects, and we can construct it like using these construction pieces and just build like a Lego, pretty big Lego from it. So, okay, this is about graph, but what is GraphRAG? In a nutshell, it's a RAG methodology that incorporates a knowledge graph as a part of the retrieval process. So instead of querying the vector database, retrieval process leverages the graph to return these results based on the entities and their relationships that are inside our data. So if we go back to our example, let's imagine that our graph, it's not that simple as that. It's just a portion of our big graph. Yeah, and given our question about flights from Chicago, about popular seafood restaurants, we would extract some triplets. Yeah, we have triplets like Chicago has flight to Honolulu. Yeah, sea wave located in Honolulu. Thus, that guys would be extracted, and then they would be passed as a context to large language model, and it can answer our question in a pretty nice way. We have Sea Wave, it's a fake restaurant in Honolulu, and Sea Breeze, fake restaurant in Cancun, and they have like a top seafood offering. Yeah, the retrieval process is more or less straightforward. The issue comes when we want to construct this graph. And as you may guess, it's not that easy because we have information we can say the same information in multiple ways. So in that paper was offered to use two-stage processing. First, you have a bunch of documents, basically raw text, and then you use large language model to brush it off. Yeah, to resolve some ambitious information, to make a text in a pretty neat format. And then, once again, you have this clean text, you pass it to large language model, and then you have those triplets extracted, and you can construct a knowledge graph out of it. Just a minute. So you can imagine that traditional vector RAG has its limitations that are shown if we want to extract something just beyond semantic similarity. But GraphRAG, it's also fails to answer questions correctly where there is no entities explicitly mentioned in the question. it was like a pretty interesting thing to combine them, unify them to do something like a hybrid RAG. Basically, leverage strengths so each other can so they can support each other during the retrieval process. So we can, in a way, concatenate all the information from RAG and a GraphRAG to form the unified context for the large language model. So it is kind of promising approach because, yeah, they can support each other and bring us additional insights. And a company called Darya conducted a research about comparing the accuracy of traditional RAG, and they call it GraphRAG here, but indeed it was like a hybrid approach, traditional RAG plus GraphRAG. And they, I think they had questions from 4 domains, like healthcare, law, finances, and industry. Yeah. And you can see that leveraging, adding this GraphRAG, adding this graph component to RAG, did a jump. They did a jump in accuracy, and it was evaluated by human reviewers. So I think we can pretty much rely on those findings. So that was the theoretical part of it, yeah, about graphs, about the idea of using graphs. And now we can think and talk about how to create basic GraphRAG-powered Bedrock agent. And the architecture of it would be quite simple, because we have a Bedrock agent which is doing the user interaction. We have our GraphRAG knowledge base, which is connected to our Bedrock agent. And our graph lives inside Neptune Analytics database engine, and our unstructured data just are located just inside S3 bucket. And a way to build it, it's pretty straightforward. If you go to Amazon Bedrock console, you can go to Builder Tools, you can choose Agent from the navigation pane, and you just create agent. And all you need to provide is the name of your agent. And then you will be redirected to the agent builder. You need to select model. Basically, it has a wide variety of different models you can use as a reasoning engine of your agent, and select a resource role. And then you still need to provide some instructions. Also, in that setup, they won't be used, but you still need to place it like a placeholder for basic instructions, and there are a couple of additional settings, which are also optional. And then our agent is already here, but it is pretty basic. If we want to create a knowledge base, we go again to Amazon Bedrock console, choose Builder Tools, Knowledge Bases from the navigation pane, and create knowledge base with a vector store. Basically, now it's like an umbrella of different types of knowledge bases. And then we have to provide knowledge base details like name, description, permissions, all that stuff before we can jump into configuring our data source. In that case, we're using Amazon S3. It's pretty straightforward and quickly to use. And this is where we can dump our unstructured data. So we're configuring data source. We need to provide its name, but it is up to you. Also, its location, whether it's in this AWS account or other AWS account, S3 address, URI, and a parsing strategy. If your data is mostly textual, you can use Amazon Bedrock default parser for free. Yeah, but if you have a lot of images, tables, something that cannot be grasped like directly, it is better to use foundation model as a parser, so it can describe it if you want to have this information used in your system. And finally, there is a chunking strategy, default one. It's around 300 tokens, but there is option for hierarchical chunking, semantic chunking, your user custom chunking, or even no chunking if your documents already like nicely chunked and you don't want to split them further. And then you have to select an embedded model. All models you should enable access in your console before it, and select Amazon Neptune Analytics GraphRAG as your vector database. Then you have like a long page to review the settings. You click create the knowledge base. Then you're doing the synchronization of your data sources or data source. And then you can select a model to test it. So basically, you have here like two options. You can see like up in the upper part, I have this toggle whether to generate or no generate responses. So there are two ways to test your knowledge base. You can ask questions and see what kind of chunks, what kind of pieces of data is retrieved, or you can test it as you would be a user. You can get an answer from a model. So we have our agent, we have our knowledge base, we need to connect those guys. Or we go back to our agent, go to Agent Builder, find a section with the knowledge bases, and we click Add. And one agent can have up to 2 associated knowledge bases. And then basically our knowledge base is added. Yeah, pretty easy, quick, I would say. But there are several things that can go wrong. First of all, if you don't synchronize your resources or the synchronization didn't go well, you won't be able to access the information inside your documents. Second one, it is not intended to use a structured data like even CSV files. Advanced chunking won't help you because for that purposes they have a structured database. Yeah. This is not about RAG or GraphRAG. And finally, you need to check agent responses because hallucination can still happen. Yeah, in that case, you can see an example. In the bottom, we have source chunk 1, which is like part of the document I was using as a source. And you can see that a fake island horizon hotel was located based on the user review in Honolulu. But on the top, you can see the answer of the agent, which was saying that it is located in Mexico. So you need to be aware of that stuff. It can happen. So if we try to link this to the first section, yeah, we can have a question. It is called GraphRAG, but it is somehow like a vector RAG. What does it mean? I would say, but the name is not fancy, like hybrid RAG is not fancy, right? GraphRAG is much more fancy. But I would say, like, it is a combination. We have a vector-based semantic search with structured graph traversal. So it uses semantic and keyword-based search to identify entry points in the graph, and then doing the graph traversal. And then it is doing re-ranking and diversity filtering to ensure quality results. So we can say it's a hybrid approach with precise matching and contextual exploration. Yeah, but if we are building that kind of automatically, we can observe results, but basically we can have no clue of what's going on inside your graph. One way is to go to Neptune itself. The resource was created when you create a knowledge base, but you can go to Neptune itself to to notebook section, and you can click Create Notebook, and then use Jupyter Notebooks and Open Cipher query language. They have like a number of magical commands, like you see here, summary, and I can have like a high level, at least high level understanding how many nodes are there, how many ages are there, what was created for me. Yeah, but if I'm more like a visual person and I like to see what's inside the graph, I can use Graph Explorer for no-code visualization. So, and it just gives me like a better vision and understanding and context of my graph. I can drag, drop, click, rotate. I can check what are the chunks of the documents, what kind of entities inside those chunks, and how entities are being mentioned inside different chunks. So one document would contain multiple chunks, and different entities would be mentioned depending on if they are mentioned or not in different chunks, as it could be different facts formed in. So this is like a philosophy of the graph that is being constructed. But you may have a sense, you may have a feeling that this is not exactly that you want, because you don't have much customization. It is just for click creation, exploration. But if you need more customization, you can use something like a GraphRAG toolkit, which was also developed and is being maintained by AWS, but it's an open source Python library that tries to make it straightforward to build graph-powered workflows. So you can use it to automate the construction of graph with vector embedding from unstructured data. And they have, in their repo, they have like a bunch of examples, and they also have like even CloudFormation templates if you want to quickly build a required infrastructure like VPC, Neptune database cluster with a Neptune serverless instance, OpenSearch serverless connection with a public endpoint. So this is kind of helpful. And if we want to have it, like it was about building your graph, yeah? And if you want to have it to retrieve information for the user, the architecture is getting slightly bit complicated, because you cannot just use a GraphRAG toolkit and create a Bedrock knowledge base, because there is no such possibility at that point, sorry. But you can still have an action group inside your agent. An action group, it's basically a toolbox for your agent that it can use for doing different kind of stuff. Yeah, you're probably aware with tools, with conception of tools for agents. So, and using this action group, we can provide a Lambda function where we write a custom code which will take care of the retrieval part. So we can use Bedrock models, Llama index to manage this retrieval. And just an agent will know, if you put a clear description to action group, an agent will know that they should call it as a tool. Yeah, you see, like having a Bedrock knowledge base is a more straightforward way, but at the same time, it is less customizable. Yeah, I was talking about like tourism example, but I think there are a couple of examples that are more useful maybe than tourism. So let's think about what they can be. I think the first one is company policies. If you have a bunch of unstructured policies, and at the same time you have an understanding of key entities and their relationship inside those policies, yeah, you have a clue, and you can at least provide a modeling for for a large language model, when you will be building this graph, you understand what should be happening inside. Yeah, same may be transferable and relatable to internal documentation. And I think even for internal code bases, it is also applicable, because we can think about different key entities or elements in our code. There are classes, there are kind of modules. A class can be parent of another class, so we can already know how many kind of relationship can be between our entities. And I think legal documents, because at the same time they are kind of standard, but there is a lot of variation inside legal clauses. But basically they mean the same stuff, but also business people usually have understanding of what they need inside these legal documents. They need to track like payment terms, some fees, like extra fees, penalties, something like that. And you definitely can take this part outside of documents and combine them and build a graph. And also medical documents. I'm not really to be honest, aware of medical terminology, but I can understand that some diseases, some symptoms, there are a lot of interconnection between them, and it also can be modeled. And last but not least, market analysis. If you think about how different companies are interacting with each other, yeah, one company can acquire another one, who can influence what, how can the inflation in, let's say, US influence inflation in Europe, that can be also modeled. Yeah, let's talk about disclaimers. Yeah, an important thing to know, because it is not like silver bullet to solve all your questions and solve the problem of RAG systems. Data type is important, and I would say not the data quality, but your impression and your understanding of data. Yeah, whether it can be modeled as a graph. Of course, graph quality itself is important, because in natural language we can say about the same scenes in many ways, like pretty interchangeably. We can say like Malmo, the city, this city, it. So we need to resolve these discrepancies inside the graph, because otherwise there would be like 4 different entities and they won't be connected between them. So they won't be just like 4 different elements instead of one element, instead of one node of your graph. Yeah, and it is never you testing. Yeah, you need to test, understand, come up with the most popular use cases and test against them. And finally, prices. If we are talking about Neptune analytics, it's like $50 per hour for US East 1. So, and you need to, in order to use this system, you cannot just pause it. Yeah, you need to be it up and running. So it's yeah, I would say it's a good point to keep in mind whether you can spend. And this is like the minimum amount, the basic example. And that leads us to takeaways. The first one is, yeah, I'm calling it hybrid RAG, but we can call it GraphRAG, yeah, graph-powered RAG. It combines strong size of RAG and graphs, providing better insights and answer quality. The second one, if we want to start quick, explore something, we can start with automatic graph creation with Bedrock knowledge bases, and we can experiment and switch to GraphRAG toolkit if needed, if more customization is needed, and use graphs and graph-powered RAG for unstructured data in complex domain where they can be modeled using entities and their relationships. And that brings us to Q&A. Thank you.
some time for questions. And
I can speak loud.
We need to record it, that's why. Yeah.
People watching this.
Okay. I don't need to speak that loud now. Okay. You guys hear me now?
Thank you.
Question. So updating GraphRAGs, how does that look like? So deleting and updating, is it a complex solution to it, or because
Updating?
Yeah, updating data into a GraphRAG system.
Yeah, I would say that it depends on the way you build the graph itself. Yeah, and depend on the domain itself, because some kind of domains, they're pretty fast, like market analysis, and the updating could be like quite a hassle here. But if we talk about some stale data, like legal documentations that hasn't been touched since, I don't know, last year, this is like even a manual update would solve quick of part of this question, right?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I was thinking of life cycle management of LLMs in this solution, because if you've done some training, do you have some strategies if you change the LLM, how to get the correct answers with testing and so on?
How to change LLM?
Yeah, let's say you have you're using LLM A 2.5, and then you want to change to LLM B, and then you have a RAG solution, and you want to make sure you get correct answers still, because you showed some, when you done the training, that you could get different answers. Some strategies on how to change the LLM in the background.
Yeah, it's a great question, because we have a lot of models coming. I would say it should be easier, to have some changes when we're using the same family. Like, for example, we were using Claude 3.5, then we switched to Claude 3.7, and even the Anthropic, they claim that, that should be pretty straightforward, guys, just don't enable this and don't touch this. But yeah, there is no, they claim it, but I don't trust, honestly. I think that we can think about, if we take like a coding approach, if I have my unit test inside my code, I can think about like having a bunch of like bullet stone test cases, that should be answered in that way. But at the same time, it's a language. We can have a bit of variety. So, it's an open question.
Anything else? Yep.
Thank you. I have some experience with semantic re-ranking, where you add metadata on every chunk. How does that relate to GraphRAG? What is the difference?
But the semantic re-ranking is being done after during the retrieval phase, right? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they also now have a possibility inside Bedrock. They have a re-ranker. You can add it. But I'm not sure how does it work under the hood. They claim it to be a re-ranker to the pieces of document that are retrieved from a graph Neptune knowledge base. But I think the concept is pretty translatable. So you can have your re-ranker in a RAG systems, but you can also have your re-ranker in a GraphRAG knowledge base. Thank you.
Anything else? Looks like we're good.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.